When a games company cuts 1,000 jobs, you already know the story. The market slowed, revenue fell, and the business had to get smaller. Nobody really questions that story, because for most of this industry's history, it was true. In 2025, it stopped being true. In 2025, players spent $201.6 billion on video games, more than in any year before it. PC had its strongest growth year on record, and mobile made more money even as downloads fell. And yet, across the industry, the number of job cuts announced since 2022 was climbing towards 47,000. So gaming had its best year ever, while working in gaming became less secure. The question isn't which of those statements is true, because both of them are. The question is how they became true at the same time. Let's start with the revenue. Newzoo's latest estimate puts the 2025 market at $201.6 billion, up 9.1% from the year before. That figure counts game sales, subscriptions, and in-game spending, and it leaves out hardware, advertising, gambling, and most business-to-business services. Newzoo's own December estimate had the year at $197 billion before its June update revised it upward. So the estimate moved, but the direction never did. Now, put the job cuts next to that. Foreign Noor's industry tracker logged about 8,500 of them in 2022, 10,500 in 2023, 14,600 in 2024, 5,300 in 2025, and at least 4,600 more through June of 2026. Then, Xbox announced 3,200 gaming cuts in July, half of them immediate, and half planned through the next financial year. That takes the identified and announced total to roughly 46,700. And since undisclosed cuts never make these lists, treat that as a floor rather than a precise count. Whatever you call it, this stopped being one terrible year a while ago. It became a labor model. The 2026 GDC State of the Game Industry Report surveyed more than 2,300 people. 28% of them said they had been laid off in the previous 2 years. Among American respondents, it was 1 in 3. An anonymous game design manager told the survey, "I have trauma and can't ever fully trust anywhere now." The industry recovered faster than the people it removed, which leaves an obvious question. If the money came back, where did it go? Because it clearly didn't go back into the same jobs. Now, here's the first thing the record hides. The games industry is not one employer with one income statement. It's Tencent, and it's also a 2-person studio. It's mobile spending in China and a console team in California. That $201.6 billion measures what players spent, and nothing more. What it doesn't tell us is who received the money, which projects were profitable, or how many people were needed to earn it. And that distinction explains most of the apparent contradiction. More than half of the 2025 total came from mobile, $113.3 billion of it. Mobile revenue grew 10.7%, even though global downloads actually declined. And Newzoo's conclusion was that the market was being driven by deeper monetization of existing audiences rather than by adding new players. Put plainly, the industry learned to extract more revenue from the people already inside its biggest games. And that kind of growth can raise the top line without creating a matching wave of new studios, new projects, or new jobs. And the cuts were not confined to the weak corners of the business. GDC found that 19% of AAA workers surveyed had been laid off in the previous 12 months, up from 8% the year before, and 2/3 of AAA respondents said their company had conducted layoffs. The promised post-pandemic course correction did not simply finish and disappear. GDC's own report put it plainly. Some hoped this would be the year, and it wasn't. So if even the industry's biggest companies were cutting into a record year, what exactly were they protecting? The answer is sitting on the most played charts. The 5 most played PC games did not change between 2023 and 2025. And on both PC and console, live service titles kept dominating the monthly active user rankings, which meant new releases increasingly had to take time away from an existing game rather than expand the total amount of time people played. To be fair, the market below the biggest games did broaden, especially on PC, but at the top, the same ecosystems stayed deeply entrenched. And for publishers, funding 10 uncertain projects is hard to justify, when one established game can keep on selling seasons, subscriptions, and virtual goods for years. That changes the job calculation. A new game needs a team long before it earns $1, while an established game already has an audience, a payment system, and years of content behind it. It still needs developers, sometimes a great many of them, but its revenue is recurring in a way a new project's revenue is not. So companies narrow their portfolios. They protect the proven franchises, canceling the uncertain bets, and remove the teams attached to them. And the revenue survives the cancellation because the revenue was often coming from somewhere else. Ask the people who were cut what reason they were given. In the GDC survey, 43% of affected respondents heard restructuring, 38% heard budget cuts, the same share heard market conditions, and 32% heard project cancellation. The answers overlap, but the leading explanation was restructuring, not one industry-wide collapse. A company can grow in one division, cut in another, and call the whole thing optimization. And then there is AI. It's tempting to make AI the single answer here, but the evidence doesn't support that yet. In the GDC survey, only 6% of affected respondents said automation or AI implementation was among the reasons their company gave. What AI is becoming is an accelerator. Playtika cut around 500 jobs, while saying it wanted to rely more on AI and less on headcount. And Krafton declared itself AI first, froze hiring, and offered voluntary resignations a few weeks later. AI did not create the industry's underlying problem, but it does give management another argument for running it with fewer people. Epic Games is the entire argument in one company. Fortnite remained one of the most successful games in the world, but Epic still cut more than 1,000 employees in March of 2026. Tim Sweeney's memo said Fortnite engagement had fallen, that Epic was spending significantly more than it made, and that another $500 million in savings had been identified. There's no contradiction inside Epic's accounts, because a famous product can generate billions while the company around it still overspends. The contradiction only appears when success, revenue, and employment are treated as if they were the same thing. For the workers, that distinction changes very little. Almost half of the people in GDC's survey who had been laid off had not found another job, and more than a third of those laid off 1 to 2 years earlier were still out of the industry's workforce. This is not the normal shuffle where one growing studio absorbs the people another one lets go. The exits are lasting longer than the announcements. The next generation can see all of this. 74% of students in GDC's smaller education survey said they were worried about finding work in games. And in SkillSearch's 2026 Salary and Satisfaction Survey, 44% of industry professionals said redundancies had made them consider leaving games altogether. The industry isn't only losing its current workers, it's teaching the future ones that loving games is not a reason to trust the games business. So, why did gaming have its best year, while nearly 47,000 job cuts were announced? It was because consumer spending and development employment no longer moved together. The growth was broad but uneven, with mobile monetization, entrenched ecosystems, premium PC releases, and faster-growing regions all contributing. And none of that required every canceled project or every eliminated job to return. The risk stayed concentrated in new projects and in the people hired to build them. The games industry did recover, just not as an employer. The revenue came back, the jobs did not.